Welcome back to the Washcast, episode 34. Well, tonight's show is a gentleman you know very well. He's been on the debate streams. He's been on an episode of mine in the past. I think it was episode 14, if I'm not mistaken. He's a fellow creator I had the pleasure of meeting at the People's Convention in Detroit, face to face. Great guy, great patriot, love him to death. We're going live with Chris's World tonight. Before we get into the show, I'd just like to remind everybody that this show is sponsored by Deliver Logistics. Tired of spending a fortune for delivery? Find out how Deliver's customized pricing can put more money back in your business. This show is also brought to you by Beehive, the newsletter platform built for growth. Using the link in the description, you can get 30 days free and 20% off your first 3 months by being a Deliver Logistics partner. It's great. The platform's fantastic. They're growing rapidly, always adding new material, and you have a built-in ad network so you can make money from it. What's better than that? This show is also brought to you by our good friends at Rumble. Download the mobile app today. It is the future of streaming and video. You got tons of perks with Rumble. You've got your live streams. You've got video on demand. You've got Rumble Premium that gives you an ad-free experience. And you've got the Rumble Creator Program if you're a creator. Learn to make money with Rumble. They're pretty generous. Also, one more quick thing before we get into the show. We now have an official Washcast Discord server. Jump in, come hang out. It's a total shit show, dumpster fire, whatever you want to call it, but it's a lot of fun. We're setting up a debate stage. We've got a text debate forum. The Rage Room is the debate room. We'd love to have you guys there. We're trying to build a community with this. Link to the Discord is also below in the description. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we're live with Chris's World with Chris Ripa. Chris, brother, welcome back, man. How have you been?
I'm good, man. Hey, it's great to be here, Robert. It's always a pleasure when we can get together and do something like this. So thanks for having me, my friend.
Dude, it's hard to believe. I know you stream every night, so you don't even keep track of your episode numbers, I don't think. But no, you were on episode 14, and now you're here 20 episodes later, episode 34.
Is that right? Okay, great.
It's been quite a long time, too. It's been almost a year.
Love it, man. Hey, I'm happy to be here and thrilled to see you and all the success that you've had. Hey, just a heads up too. When I'm looking over here, I'm actually looking at you. I just can't stand this bright ass light, and your face is over here. My camera is right here. I just didn't want you to think I was looking off to the side or something. But it's you're good. It's a pleasure to be here, man. I love seeing all your success, watching your content. It's really great. So thank you for having me.
Yeah. Nah, dude. And, same to be said for you. I mean, you've really just in the last year, like you have really come into your role and what you're doing as a host. I mean, everything from like the voice changes, the way you actually portray the information, like it reminds me of some of the late night talk show hosts back in the day, the Johnny Carsons and, things like that. Like you've really come into it with this personality, and you're just knocking it out of the park, man. So congrats.
Robert, I appreciate that. Thank you. And, I don't look to like necessarily anybody and model their style. I feel like I have this my own style. But to your exact point, exactly what you said, that late night vibe is kind of where the lane that I see myself in, and then I kind of just want to add my flair to it. All late night
Yeah.
hosts, late night content, it's similar in the sense of it's late night formatted, right? This is what you're tuning in to watch, but
Right.
each host has its own sense of personality, individual, opinions, this, that, and a third. So I just try to, fill that void, and hopefully people like it and the show can grow. And that,
Well,
but
you've
exactly
had
what
some
you're
growth,
saying
right?
is what, yeah, oh yeah, there's been a ton of growth. I mean, I think about it like this. My buddy had a bachelor party in April 2 years ago. And yeah, 2 years, April 2 years ago. So on my way, it was in Las Vegas. On my way to the airport going to Vegas, I had just hit 10,000 followers. And today I have a little over 70, and I've, grown a bit on Rumble. I got off of YouTube recently. But yeah, the success on X has been great, and really, really appreciative of all the people who support me and and reach out. So it's been a fun ride, man. It's a wild ride. I know you and I are both pretty young. I'm 28 years old, and I've been doing this for a couple of years, but look forward to many years and a future of being that next wave, that next voice. Because there's one thing that's inevitable: time, and that next generation will come. Um, and ultimately, I hope to be somebody that could spearhead and lead the way and be that strong voice, have that backbone, and really be influential and morally sound, fundamentally sound and correct. I don't ever want to be somebody that's spewing ideas that aren't relatable or toxic. I always try to reach consensus amongst all of us. And yeah, these are just the things that I believe in, I guess.
No, 100%. I mean,
Yeah.
you're authentic. You make your content authentic, and
Try. Gotta
dude,
try.
that's something that a lot of people miss, man. Everybody wants to be this kind of like cookie cutter, typical,
Yeah.
uh, run of the mill creator. Everybody looks at like the Benny Johnsons and those guys to be like their benchmark. And but look, it's those guys. People are starting to see right through Benny Johnson. They're starting to see through a lot of these people that come in and don't present their content in an authentic way. And it's part of why I think that the Democrats have lost so much support, and why the guys like Harry Sisson and Chris Mowry and the rest of them have kind of failed, because there's no authenticity behind it. They're reading from a script, and they're pushing the narrative. That's all it is. And most of the time the lines are exactly the same. So
Yeah.
what you do, as authentically as you do it, is just it's fucking fantastic, man. Keep doing what you're doing.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, I try to do my best, and the Harry Sissons of the world provide zero value to anybody. At the
Correct.
end of the day, the way that you provide value to people is by getting out there, living life, um, getting outside of your comfort zone, doing things you don't want to do, getting that exposure, and doing everything with an open mind, being optimistic, of course, and then coming back and giving that information to people and giving them an experience that's digestible, intellectual, but it doesn't need to be rocket science. It just needs to sound like, what the fuck you're talking about a little bit, right?
Right.
But the
Yeah.
way that you know what you're talking about is by actually doing things. So Elon Musk said, "Okay, when you're in a job interview, and this clip that I'm talking about is years old, but somebody interviewed him and said, "What do you ask people in a job interview?" And he's like, "I don't look for degrees or accomplishments. I look and I ask them, what was the biggest technical challenge that you have ever faced in your professional life, and how did you overcome that step by step? Because if you face the challenge and you actually overcame that challenge, then you know and you can explain every single little detail of that situation that you were in. So it's the same thing with life, right? Like I feel like the best way to provide value to people is to actually go out, do things, meet others, network, get involved. And those are kind of the things that I preach, but I also practice, I try to practice to the best that I can as well, you know?
No, 100%, man. And that's one of the biggest things for me was being able to, especially in Detroit, like being able to meet you and the Native Patriot and, just a lot of
Yeah.
those guys that do similar things to what we do. You
He
can
was just
smell
on
authenticity a
Timcast.
mile away.
He was just on
Was he
Tim
really?
Pool. Yeah. He's
Really?
also in, have you seen that new Tom McDonald video? Because you can't cancel all of us. You're more than
Oh
welcome to
yeah, that was
try.
him. That
Yeah,
was cool as
Native
shit,
Patriot
dude. Yeah.
is in the music video. Yeah,
That's fucking awesome, dude.
dude. Yeah,
I
I hit
love
that note
that.
pretty good, bro. They should put me on the thing.
Yeah, right. I think they should put you on either Timcast or Piers Morgan soon.
Yo,
I think it'd be great.
for real. I that's also one of the things that I try to do. Like, um, do you watch Dan Bongino?
Used to.
Yeah, have you seen the Vince who replaced him?
No.
I love Vince. I think Vince is fantastic and he is super knowledgeable and he explains things very well. And I think there's a ton of value to him. And um I wouldn't say like nobody better, but Vince is a phenomenal person, and I think he's phenomenal at the job that he does. This is the
So
guy
is
that
he
replaced Vince.
carrying on the Dan Bongino show?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there's a couple of people that are on the Silverlock network, and it's really good stuff. I mean, anybody who is watching this now, if you're not watching what they're doing over there on Bongino Report and with Silverlock, there's a lot of value to all the shows with Haley, Avita, and of course Vince. Really good stuff. Really good stuff, and an awesome community in the live chats. It's the best community in on Rumble, in my opinion. Um, but like, there's a difference between Vince and Dan in the sense of their presentation style, and that's not a bad thing.
Right.
But Dan was very fiery, and I wouldn't say that I'm like I would say that in the sense of presentation style, that is kind of how, not how I do it, but I always try to be up here with my presentation style. Although
Yeah.
you're catching
You
me
have
on a
to be.
night here, Robert, while we're recording this right now. It is, can we tell them the time?
Yeah.
It is 11 at night Eastern on a Friday night. So I'm actually a little bit more cooled down right now, believe it or not. But
Yeah.
I can get up here
Well,
very
this is the Chris that I was hanging out with in Detroit.
yeah.
Like that's this. And then you get on the show and you're just an entirely, you take it from here to here. It's great.
Yeah, and that's
Like
the thing
so
too.
it's perfect for this show.
I try to I'm definitely authentic, right? In the sense of who I am. But when I do my show, I want to bring a sense of fire when I do it. And I view that as a characteristic of Live with Chris's World. Like when you watch Live with Chris's World, you're getting the like I'm jumping out of my seat type of content. And
Yeah.
that's the show style. Now, I am like that in real life. Like if you catch me debating somebody or getting fired up or when I do public speaking, like that's how I do it. But of course,
We're watching WWE.
yeah, we're watching WWE. But of course, you're not fired up 24/7. But in the sense of
Right.
presenting, it's part of the way that I present for sure.
No, without a
Yeah.
doubt.
But dude, yeah,
So, and I mean,
Detroit was great though.
it was a great
Yeah.
time, man. I regret not having been able to spend more time.
Yeah, well,
But
they're coming down to Tampa. They're doing the Student Action Summit. I think they call it.
I would love to get down
It's
there
in
for that.
July. Yeah, I think we're gonna do. I think we're gonna do a big booth and actually, um, like do like a live broadcast each day for 8 hours a day. Hey, we'll talk about it. We've got some plans.
That'd be sick, dude. I'd
We're gonna
love
figure
to
it
come
out.
help with that.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
figure
keep
it
me
out.
in the loop, man.
No
Well,
doubt.
so outside of the video creating, you've also done something pretty damn interesting as of late.
Yeah.
You've wrote a book.
Yes. Yes. So after the election, well, first of all, I've written a couple of books, not completed them, but I've started like 6 or 7 different books and ended up just deleting all of them. So I've been attempting to kind of put something together for a couple of years now, maybe about a year and a half, 2 years. After the election, I said, okay, I know what I can really write a good book about, because the main thing is, if I'm going to write a book, I want it to be very valuable. So the Biden administration, amnesia is the enemy. We lived it, we survived it, and now we have to learn from it. We have to keep it at the top of mind to ensure it doesn't happen again, right? I mean, so the horror that was Biden, so this never happens again. It is available on Amazon. I want to read the back of the book to you real quick, Robert, and then we can talk a little bit about what's in the book if you'd like. But I think that the
Yeah.
back of the book kind of sums it up really good. So this book isn't here to coddle you with wonky policy breakdowns. This is a gut punch, a loud, unfiltered scream into the void of the Biden years. I'm a regular schmuck who watched this train wreck unfold in real time, jaw on the floor, yelling at the TV like it owed me money. And trust me, we've got plenty to yell about. Multiple chapters of pure, unadulterated disaster, each one a fresh circle of hell that Biden and his crew dragged us through. This isn't about nostalgia for what came before or what might have been. It's about staring down the Biden mess and swearing on everything holy that will never let this clown show happen again. So it's 14 chapters, from COVID to inflation to Afghanistan to LGBTQ to Ukraine to Hunter Biden to the laptop, weaponization of the DOJ, all the way down to the pardons. Ultimately, why I wrote it was for people to have a guide. Let's say you have this liberal friend who you know goes to the bar, you go to the bar with this friend, or you have a cookout with this friend, whatever, you have drinks with this friend, you see this friend, but they're a liberal and they don't see politics the way that you see it. And you know that they always want to talk about Ukraine or the border or COVID or inflation. But let's use Ukraine, for instance. So what you could do, and it's a small book, right? It's 14 chapters, but it's only 140 pages. You could read a chapter in just about 5 minutes. So before you go to the bar with your friend, you could read up on that Ukraine chapter and say, oh, okay, did you know that Zelensky took 11 different broadcasting stations and morphed them into one broadcasting station? What do you call that? Do you call that democratic or democracy right there? Or do you call that trying to control the message and control the way that information is being distributed? Did you know that he banned 11 different political parties, equaling 44 different seats in the parliament of Ukraine, which most of them were the opposition of Zelensky? You could talk about the fact that Zelensky postponed an election and, oh, they were in war, this, that, and the third, but there are multiple different layers to the onion that you unpeel when you say that Zelensky is a dictator, which he certainly is. But certain things like that. So you could look at this book, take this book, read a quick chapter, get that data, get the facts, get the information, and be readily equipped to have the conversation with your friend who doesn't see it the way that you see it. It's like a battle plan, a blueprint, a template, and a format for you to have a conversation and be dressed for success, to have the facts to win the conversation. You could look at the 13 service members that died in Abbey Gate in Afghanistan. Donald Trump had a plan to withdraw with strength and dignity. But the Biden administration fucked it up in a huge way, but then looked at the camera and said that it was a successful operation when John Kirby did that. Meanwhile, we all remember the picture of the people hanging on to the wings of the planes as they were taking off. So we have all the data in this book, all the facts in this book, chapter by chapter. And I really think that it does provide a lot of value. It's not a story. It doesn't beat around the book. It's all the headlines that everybody knows. Like I said, Afghanistan, COVID, Ukraine, Inflation Reduction Act, right? Crime, weaponization of the Department of Justice, LGBTQ issues, which have, of course, been, let's face it, pushed down the throat of America when most Americans don't have a problem with it. They're like, hey, look, we don't really have a problem with any of this. But when it gets thrown into your
the
face,
phrase I hear the most,
yeah,
is leave the kids alone.
Right. And of course, right. And ultimately, when you look at what happened through the last 4 years, it was extremely kid-centered, which is a huge issue. Yeah. But all of that is in there, right? So I think that the book does provide a lot of value. The horror that was Biden, so this never happens again. It's available on Amazon. It's only $14.99. And anybody that picks up a copy, first of all, I would really, really appreciate it. It means a lot. It supports me. And if you do get one, reach out to me. Let me know that you got a copy. And also, let's talk about it. Let me know your thoughts. As you're reading it, say, hey, I'm this far through it. I love having that discussion with people, getting constructive criticism. If you think I could have done something different, better, or if I should have had something else in there, let me know. I want to have that conversation.
And don't forget, there's a nice little button where you can actually read a sample.
There you go.
Of the book.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
I actually didn't
check
even know
out.
that.
Yeah, go check that out. The link to buy the book on Amazon will be down in the description when this video releases. So make sure you check it out. It's only $14.99, man. Pick it up. It's 139 pages. You can read it in a day.
Yeah.
Chris, I need you to send me a copy of that book. I would rather pay you directly in cash than buy it from Amazon.
I could get one over to you for sure. No
doubt.
That'd
be great. I'll pay you the full price for it, not the third.
Yeah, right. Well, Amazon, it's good, right? Like for people who do think that they can go publish books on and write about things that are valuable. I don't have a publisher. I didn't come out of pocket a large amount of money to do this book. So Amazon has KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing is what it's called. And you could sign up for it for free and ultimately have a book written out on Microsoft Word and then upload it, create a cover. I created mine on Canva. Like I'm pretty good with digital design, not to like toot my own horn or anything, but like I created this on Canva and uploaded that. And that's it. So it's easy, but the way that the profit works, like just to give you a peek behind the curtains, like I don't care, I'm fully transparent. So like for instance, I list a book at $15, and the way that it works is Amazon says, okay, how much does the book cost to make? It costs $5 to make. So the net profit is $10, and then Amazon takes 5 and then gives me 5. Right. But if you were to list, if anybody had like a book where they thought that they should list it at $30, your profit would be much more. But I encourage people to write books and do that if you think that it's something that you can do, or if it's something that you've always wanted to do. It's something that I always wanted to do, and through talking with different authors and different podcasters, I tripped up upon Amazon. Then you don't have to deal with inventory. You don't have to deal with shipping. Of course, you're only getting a third, like in my case, of the revenue. But I don't have to deal with shipping the book. Amazon does that. I don't have to deal with inventory. Amazon prints it when it's ordered. So you take the good with the bad.
Right, exactly. Well, dude, I wish you massive success on that. I can't wait to get my hands on it and read it. So, I mean, I guess we can move into some of the shit that's going on currently around the country. Because, we got to talk a little bit about tariffs on your show the other night. And, I mean, we can dive a little bit back into that. I was actually just going to post that segment in this stream.
Yeah, you do that. But anything you want to do, man, I'm game. Yeah.
So I got a couple things that I had pulled up just thinking ahead. Um, Something popped up on X today
Okay.
that I was not very thrilled with, and I actually made a post about it.
Okay.
And it says, make sure the volume's up here.
So the president has discussed this idea quite a few times publicly. He's also discussed it privately. You're referring to the president's idea for American citizens to potentially be deported. These would be heinous, violent criminals who have broken our nation's laws repeatedly. And these are violent repeat offenders in American streets. The president has said, if it's legal, right? If there is a legal pathway to do that, he's not sure. We are not sure if there is. It's an idea that he has simply floated and has discussed very publicly as in the effort of transparency. Reagan. Thank you.
So I have a huge problem with that.
Okay.
There is no scenario, just like my post said, there is no scenario in which I would ever support deporting an American citizen to be imprisoned in a foreign country. And I'll tell you why. Whether they're murderers, whether they're rapists, whether they're pedophiles, they broke the laws here in the United States as United States citizens. As United States citizens, incarcerated or not, they are guaranteed a certain and specific quality of life. That is just, we have human rights standards here that we enact every day. If you go and you look at modern day prisons, they're not that bad, right?
No, I think that you're right. Yeah.
And so they're guaranteed this certain quality of life here. And for us to just deport an American citizen and send them to somewhere like, I don't know, El Salvador, which shout out to Nayib Bukele. I love the man. I think he's doing great things. I think that Secot, which is their supermax, their massive prison, I think it was something that he needed to do to control the cartels.
Build that prison.
Yeah, I think it's great. However, I don't think sending America's criminals to El Salvador to house them and paying El Salvador to house them, I don't like that idea. I think that would be infringing on someone's rights. And
I think that
it's just what it is.
So there's levels to the conversation. There's the humanitarian thing for sure. Like you can't actually violate human rights, and you would need to ensure that those prisons are up to a standard that's acceptable. The physical side of it, the monetary side of it, I think that you could take what it costs per individual that's incarcerated and compare that to the cost of what it would be in El Salvador, and I think you could make an argument that it would be financially beneficial to outsource incarcerations. Correct. In that case. I think you have to look at the crime, because look at death row, for instance, where people are sentenced to death and they're literally just sitting there waiting. People who have committed vile acts, killed and raped children, and other people, right? Like there are a lot of individuals who have committed some really disgusting acts and are simply sitting in a jail cell waiting to die. And to the point that you said, prisons in America, of course there's some rough ones, but they're really not, cutthroat. They're not to the extent that they used to be. So right. I say that to say, like, I wouldn't take a guy who did armed robbery and outsource him to El Salvador. But a guy who raped kids and killed kids and is sitting on death row anyway, that guy, I have absolutely no problem sending his ass to El Salvador. And the rights thing, like, I get what you're saying, and I get legally in linguistically, like how the language would work. But if you're that guy in the scenario that I'm saying, in my opinion, you shouldn't have rights. You don't have any rights. I don't, you should be tortured and put to death immediately anyway. You're lucky to be seeing the movie as long as you're seeing it. And eventually you will be put to death. But, for the people who are incarcerated and did those sick crimes, I think there's a good argument to make for outsourcing their incarcerations to places like El Salvador. That would be my.
I mean,
my
I see, and I see your point there. I just, I worry. Obviously El
That you
Salvador
open
gives their people the
Pandora's
basics. That's my concern, and it's like, okay, we've seen issues within our own prison system where someone's been incarcerated, and then 30 years later, evidence comes that exonerates them, right? And then they're let out. Well,
yes, but I would argue that those convictions occur before like the 90s. You know what I mean? If you look at the level of overturned convictions and say, okay, how many overturned convictions have happened in the past 10 years? You say 100 of them.
Right.
All right, 100 convictions have been overturned in the past 10 years. Out of those 100, when were the initial convictions of those incarcerations? I bet you if we did that, we would find that a majority of them were before 1990 even. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you could look at the OJ case, for instance, and that case was one of the first cases really that was notable where they used DNA, right?
Right.
I'm pretty sure. So I mean, the technology, I would bet, Robert, there are so many people that are still alive today that are falsely imprisoned just because
Absolutely.
the flawed, way that the legal system is. But at the same time, today I feel like it's a lot less likely that there is flaws because of all, like, for instance, if somebody commits a crime, you could look at how they got Luigi Mangione. That's wild how they were able to trace that guy down. Or, for instance, the Boston bomber, and that was almost 15 years ago or 15 years ago. So the way
Right.
that today, with the level of technology and surveillance that exists, not all the time, I get that, but in some instances, it makes it much more obvious,
Difficult.
right? And then you could look at the Brian Koberger situation. Do you know that murder that I'm talking
Yeah.
about? The Idaho students?
Yeah.
Yo, I don't mean to get off track here, but can we just for 60 seconds just talk about the Idaho murder? Do you know what I'm actually talking about? The Brian
Yeah.
Koberger case?
100%.
Okay. Do you think that guy did it?
I mean, from what I've been presented with, yeah.
Yeah. There's another guy. I think his name is Brent Kopaka or something like that. There's a lot of evidence that could say otherwise, which is why I think the prosecution is not necessarily dragging their feet, but I know they had to like change jurisdictions and do a whole bunch of shit. But there is another story where shortly after the murder that occurred in Idaho, there was this veteran who was apparently friends with Brian Koberger. And this veteran lived, I think it was in a dorm on campus at that Washington school, and ultimately threatened the roommates. The roommates called the cops. The cops came, and this guy had a gun or a knife or something, and they laid him out and shot him and killed him. This guy, this was like a day or two after the murders. This guy, there's theories out there, was friends with Brian Koberger, where potentially, I don't know, maybe it was a drug deal gone wrong. Maybe Brian Koberger was in the house and it was somebody else who did it. Maybe Brian Koberger did it alone. I have no clue. All I'm saying is that I have a buddy who makes law content, and it makes really good content on made. He doesn't do it anymore. His channel is no longer around. But when the Brian Koberger thing happened and this murder happened, he was all over it and all over this. He actually live called that. What town was that in? It was in Idaho. It was in crap, I can't remember the town. What town was that? It was in hold on, I got it. Oh shit, was it Moscow? Yeah, it was Moscow, was it? I don't fucking remember the town. Whatever. But the point is, dude.
Yeah, Moscow, Idaho.
Yeah, that's a crazy murder. And to be able to pull that off in the way that guy did, to go in there and to murder 4 people and then to not murder the roommate, but then for there to be 2 other roommates that are living, and those other 2 roommates are texting the whole time, but don't call the cops for 12 hours. So, I mean, I don't know, like, what happened? Did those roommates hear bloody murder and hear their friends getting killed and like know that something terrible just happened? Like, there's so many things that need to be asked. Where's the murder weapon? Where's the guy's clothes? I think that Brian Koberger did it and acted alone. That's what I think. I think that the story that the prosecution is putting forward, the story that we all know, I think that actually is the truth. But all I'm trying to do is add a different perspective and to put people down that rabbit hole. If you're interested in that murder and in that story, the court case.
I'm actually
this summer. But
here's an interesting.
Are you looking stuff up right
piece. Now? Yeah, I just found.
Did you look up the guy that I was talking about?
Yeah, so there is.
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you, watch this.
This is from CNN. So this is they're talking about a recently unsealed defense motion.
I just am turning off my camera for literally 20 seconds, but keep going.
You're good. A recently unsealed defense motion in the capital murder case against Brian Koberger offers the most detailed picture of the suspect's personality to emerge since his arrest in the brutal killings of 4 University of Idaho students. Attorneys for Koberger claim in the motion that the 30-year-old has autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, and executing him would violate the 8th Amendment's prohibition on cruel and unusual punishment. Koberger displays extremely rigid thinking, perseverates on specific topics, processes information on a piecemeal basis, struggles to plan ahead, and demonstrates little insight into his own behaviors and emotions, the filing notes, citing a medical evaluation commissioned by his attorneys. Due to his ASD, Mr. Koberger simply cannot comport himself in a manner that aligns with societal expectations of normalcy. This creates an unconscionable risk that he will be executed because of his disability rather than his culpability. Prosecutors have said they will seek the death penalty at his trial scheduled for August. Koberger is accused of killing Madison Mogan, Kaylee Goncalves, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin at an off-campus home in November 2022. Not guilty pleas have been entered on his behalf. The newly unsealed filing is the latest in a flurry of defense motions aimed at taking the death penalty off the table for the only suspect in the fatal stabbings that horrified the small community of Moscow.
Yeah, but I think
the investigation culminated with the arrest in Pennsylvania of Koberger, a criminology graduate student.
But I think he actually is up for the death penalty.
He is. They plan to seek the death penalty, and so his lawyers are arguing that he has autism, ASD, and that
he doesn't have fucking autism.
Giving him the death penalty would be a violation of the 8th Amendment for cruel and unusual punishment, because they're saying that they're gonna put him to death over his disability rather than his actions. And I mean, I think that's a total line of bullshit.
This guy was a teacher's aide. This is the way that I wish people would think, and they don't think like this, but they should. This guy was a teacher's aide, right? So in that case, it's a big job, right? People pay tens of thousands of dollars to go to a university, and you're a teacher's aide. You have a serious impact on somebody else's education that they're receiving and paying a lot for it.
Right.
Did this motherfucking guy disclose that he had the TISM or not when he applied for that? Did they know?
Yeah.
If so, and if they are aware of it, and this guy was honest and always told people that he had the tism up front his whole life, in that case, fine. You know what? I'll zip up. But if not, if it's something that he now says, oh, well, I hid it my whole life and nobody knows, but now I'm autistic, I tell that guy to fuck off. You're an idiot. No, you're not autistic. You know what I mean? Well, he's an idiot. Like that would be what I have to say to that. It's absolute bullshit.
I think it's a defense move because they sent him for a medical evaluation. So, I'm thinking it's just a defense move.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, you know what? Maybe he could very well have ASD.
Maybe.
Even if he's never been diagnosed. But now we're on this. We've pushed the case to this point where it's like, we're going to determine right now if he has ASD after he murders these kids. Like it's you see what I mean? That brings me back to my point of like our justice system internally is so fucked up.
Yeah.
In how people are judged and juried that I don't want to see us deporting people to go in a supermax facility where they're going to have less rights than they would here. I get that it's cheaper. And
I would say this.
I think we can cut more from the Pentagon first, but that's just me.
I would agree with that. If I was somebody who was in Trump's ear, I would say that it's more unpopular to do something like this and pitch this as a favorable thing to the American people. Let's lay off this and just pick something else up that could have even greater impact and greater favorability and likability to the American people. Like you said, Pentagon hasn't passed an audit, ever? Or in how long, So
it's been at least 9 years.
Let's do that. Let's continue with the Doge thing. There's multiple different areas that need to be continued to be worked on.
Or let's go to a left-wing talking point. Let's make some of the Democrats happy and say, okay, well, instead of looking at deporting people to El Salvador, let's talk about how we can rein in the private prison system and make it more affordable for the government to house people here. Maybe we do that because that's something. Looking at prison reform is something that we might actually be able to unite some people on the left on. It would be a much better way than going this route.
The thing is this: I get like people, do you want more people in prison or less people in prison? And that's a debate that you could have. But I think that ultimately, how to stop behavior. So ultimately, let me ask you this. Do you think that people are inherently evil or good?
So I like to think that every person that is born by the grace of God is born inherently good. Okay. And I say that it tends to be environmental factors and genetics that predispose someone to becoming evil.
Okay.
So,
but let's just say, just naturally, though, generally speaking, because you're talking about from a time of birth. So you would say that children, innocent, you don't start off that way, but all adults eventually reach this point that there's a flip, right? So generally speaking, would you say that adults, people that you come across in your day-to-day life, are good or evil? I would say that they're evil. And I'll tell you why that I say that they're evil. Because if I gave you or anybody an iPhone and I said, one day only, just one, all day today, what I need you to do is I need you to hold this iPhone up just like this. All day, what's going to happen is every single thought that you have in your head is going to be displayed on that fucking iPhone. No matter who you're talking to face, what you're thinking is going to be displayed on that iPhone. everything. Would you do that? If would you do something like that? No, nobody would. Nobody would do it. So that to me proves the point to naturally people are not, maybe not evil, like evil's a terrible word, but more bad than good. Because if you were to be offered an iPhone and say, okay, if you were to say otherwise, then put that iPhone on your head all day and let your true intrinsic thoughts be portrayed to the world and the people that you're talking to. Because like for me, like you could be at work or something like that, or just at the bar with a friend, or be like, yo, this guy's a fucking idiot or something,
Right.
but not actually say it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
when I say, okay, people are more bad than good, I use that example to kind of back it up. But how do you stop bad behavior ultimately? Like when we talk about, do you want less people in jail or more people in jail? I feel like there are a lot of bad people out there right now. We've seen the crime.
So
I think you got to make
and
examples, incarcerate them, make examples, and have law and order be respected. Look at the teens jumping on cars in Chicago. There isn't a respect for authority there. And that's why it continues to occur.
Well, and I can agree with that. I will say that in a lot of senses, anything that is nonviolent, no one should go to jail for being a first-time offender. No one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for anything nonviolent, you could make that argument, but there's still flaws, because look at Bernie Madoff. Look at Jordan Belfort. Like, these are people who did commit crimes. Jordan Belfort may be lesser of the two, but Bernie Madoff specifically, I mean, nearly bankrupt the Mets, or he did, right? Holy shit.
Right.
So, but that's a guy who was quite literally a part of creating the NASDAQ. If you didn't know that, Bernie Madoff was a part of creating the NASDAQ. This is a guy who was more or less walked on water when it came to the top people on Wall Street. And then eventually he gets hit with this billions of dollar Ponzi scheme. Yeah. So like somebody like that should for sure be incarcerated if it's his first time doing something. You know what I mean? But
yeah, I mean, and you have
because
to look
there's extremely malicious intent, you know?
Right.
But I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that overall the justice system does need an overhaul. But again,
it does.
It's human beings judging other human beings. Now, I'm on the flip side of you, where I like to believe that everybody deep down, if you dig deep enough, I like to believe that everybody is inherently good, right? But environmental factors, whether it's financial stress or it's mental health, anxiety, or a lot of people in social media becoming very selfish. Like, I think there are a lot of external real world factors that don't necessarily negate that idea of being all good or all bad. But I think sometimes it's like a disease. It latches on, it digs in, and it spreads. And so, I mean, you look at people that are alcoholics or addicts that have an addiction. Look at what it does to those people. It turns those people into what you could say is evil. People selling their their sister's bracelets, stealing from their parents and stealing all their parents' jewelry and going and pawning it on the street for drugs. Like, that's fucking evil, right?
Yeah.
But deep down, when someone gets clean and they start to become themselves again, you realize that, hey, these people are still inherently good. They were just controlled by an external factor.
I agree with that 110%. No debating. What do you think in a lot of cases is the moment in time that the wake up call and the flip of the switch for people to turn over that new leaf? What do you think is the stimulus that does that in a lot of cases?
A lot of times it's that idea of hitting rock bottom. You realize that.
But what are the things that happens to somebody's life to make them hit the rock bottom? You could lose a spouse, a companion, you could lose a job, but in a lot of time, people get locked up. Yeah. They get caught doing something and they go to jail and they say fuck, and they sober up in a couple of days. You know, people sometimes have the withdrawals in jail, and they say fuck, okay, and they got to wake up. So, I mean, I think that there is value to the system, certainly broken. But at the same time, when we look at that timeline that we just laid out, people go through bad shit and get hooked on stupid stuff, and it changes their personality. And there's thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of examples of people who have turned over that new leaf and been ultimate successes. But there is something, a fork, a moment, a stimulus, something that occurred in their life that made them switch it up. So whether that's getting arrested, whether it's losing a job, whatever it might be, there still is always something, you know?
And so here's the way I've always looked at it, right? Is what is the goal of prison? Other than locking people up and keeping them from, being a danger to others. But
that's where prison fails. Right there is the goal in prison should be to bring people back into society in a way
and
that
rehabilitate them.
Correct, where they would never be in a situation to land themselves back in prison. And that right there, Robert, is one of the biggest failures of our prison system in this country. I didn't mean to cut you off. Please continue.
No, it's perfect. That was actually a perfect addition, because what I was going to say is, for me, if you really want to see the inherent good in people, you don't do that by locking them up for 10 years and then just pushing them out onto the streets and say good luck, because you haven't actually worked through any of the things that got them there. So if they're a drug addict, I would say, okay, first things first, we're going to send you to rehab, mandatory rehab. We'll get you off the drugs. You'll go and you'll do 5 years in jail, sober, time to reflect. And then for those last 5 years, what we'll do is we're going to have, it's going to be court appointed and mandated, almost like a probation, but you have to go see a therapist. You have to go see a mental health doctor and get out there, and you have to participate. So if if you can get to the root of what changed someone, and you can make progress and build coping skills, that will drastically lower that person's risk of reoffending. Yeah, and that's where we failed.
I think so. I think there certainly could be ways, therapy could be one. I would argue against therapy particularly. I think therapy is a good for sure. But I think that today in 2025, if you took a pool of 100 people that are talking to therapists, 100 people, out of those 100 people, I think 80 don't need to talk to a therapist. I think that it's something that is heavily glorified, heavily word of mouth. People recommend therapists. Hey, this person helped me. But I think that those voids can easily be filled through others. And at the end of the day, you have to understand that the therapist went to college to be a therapist, took out loans to be a therapist, showed up to work when they didn't want to today to be a therapist. They're getting paid to be a therapist, are going on a lunch break and can't wait to look at that clock for that lunch break. And then they come back and they be a therapist, just like we do what we do on a daily basis. And you're paying that therapist and thinking that you're getting this product, but really a therapist would also make a great salesperson. This is my opinion, and I do think that
Yeah.
there are people out there who do really need therapy, and I think that those people do get value from it. But I'm just talking about, in hindsight, not all people using it, I think, actually need it. They could get that void filled through a good friend, a coworker, a boss, a
Church.
cousin, somebody else. You know what I mean? And talking about
Yep.
those issues and having the confidence to be vulnerable with somebody, and you can get out what you need to get out and talk through a solution that's going to work. And if you're talking to somebody that knows you and knows your life, you don't have to waste the time to explain to them the whole backstory like you would a therapist, and then you just burnt through your hour session but didn't even get to the whole point because you fucking burnt through the hour session teaching her about your life and all the different characters that are going to play a role in the story. Well, I'll get to the story next time on the second session. You know what I mean?
Well, and not just that, but and that would be something where like the procedures would change, where maybe it's a state therapist. Maybe it's somebody that's brought on by the state.
I'm not hating on the idea of therapy.
Whatever it is.
I kind of went off on a tangent on therapy.
I think it was
in general.
Yeah, no, and I think that until you start to address, the root causes of what got that person there.
Yeah, no doubt.
You can't. You can lessen the chance to reoffend.
Mm-hmm.
By a lot, instead of just kicking them back out to, the life they were living previously. It just
100%.
It doesn't make any sense. Now, however, the next thing that I want to pull up, these are the types of people that I would love to see rotting in a fucking cell. Elizabeth Warren decided that she has calling for an investigation into whether President Trump manipulated the market to benefit his Wall Street donors, all while working people and small businesses paid the price. Did Trump help insiders cash in on his tariff flip-flopping? It sure looks like corruption. Here's what she had to say.
Donald Trump is trashing our economy. First, Donald Trump imposed across-the-board tariffs. Then, just a few hours ago, he dropped those tariffs to 10% on everyone and moved the tariffs up to 125% on China, up from 105% yesterday. Now, there's confusion, there's chaos. No one knows what the tariffs will be tomorrow or the next day or next week or next month. But here's what we do know. Are prices still going up? Yes. Are businesses still wary about investing? Yes. Are millions of working people still worried about their jobs and millions of small businesses still worried about closing shop? Yes. And right before Donald Trump declared that some of his tariffs were off again, he sent out a message to his billionaire buddies. He posted, "This is a great time to buy," in all caps. Was that market manipulation? Was it corruption in plain sight? We need an independent investigation into market manipulation because Americans need to know whether President Trump or anyone in his administration manipulated the market to benefit their donors, all while they are working for the American people and while small businesses and those working families are paying a price. It's a disaster. But here's the thing. Republicans in Congress have a chance to stop him right now. If they do nothing, they, along with Trump, are responsible for the fallout. Congress could end this dangerous trade war right now by passing my bipartisan resolution with Senator Ron Wyden to turn off the fake emergency authority that Donald Trump is using to impose his worldwide and chaotic tariffs. So I have a simple question for the Senate. Why aren't we passing this resolution this instant?
She's a fucking idiot.
She is a fucking idiot. And then today she also came out and said,
humor me with Democrats talking about market manipulation when there's literally a fucking app built to follow the congressional representatives and the investments that they make.
Yeah. And then she also had the audacity to say this. No lawmaker in Congress should be able to own, buy, and sell individual stocks. We need to ban congressional stock trading, and I've got a bill for that.
Good. I agree with that.
Oh,
100%.
interesting.
That's the first time I agree with her.
But isn't it interesting? Because now that they're accusing the right of doing it, now all of a sudden they want to jump on it. Well, what are you going to do? Why don't you go back through Nancy Pelosi's stock portfolios for the 30 plus fucking years that crypt keeper haggled cunt has been in office?
Yeah, 100%.
Go after that. Go after that, you fucking hack. Adam Schiff did the same exact thing. And it's like, what are we doing here? These people have lost the plot.
And look, think about it like this too, right? So she's talking about Donald Trump is doing this for his Wall Street buddies. You could play the market in different ways when it gets pushed down and through options and this, that, and the third. But in hindsight, just at a high level, are stocks up or down over the past 90 days? They're down in a big way. You had that initial pop in November that occurred with crypto in the stock market, but ultimately over the past 90 days, stocks are down. What donors is she talking about? What Wall Street donors is she talking about? Yes, Meta was there. Yes, Bezos was there. Yes, Elon was there. But at the same time, all of those stocks are down over the past 90 days. Especially right. Bitcoin. For somebody that's a pro-crypto president, Ethereum has gotten crushed. Bitcoin's down to like 80K, I guess. But at the end of the day, with all that being said, it exists because of the uncertainty in the market. The market doesn't like uncertainty. The tariffs has caused uncertainty. What's happening with Russia and Ukraine causes uncertainty. Europe's involvement in that causes a lot of uncertainty due to the ties that our market has with Europe. But you have to look at, okay, the left is saying recession, recession, recession. All right, fine. Let me evaluate this without bias. The jobs report in March in the private sector came out massive, big above expectations. All right, that doesn't have any indication of a recession. You look since Donald Trump came in office, I know that on my show I had it was at 2.9 trillion, but it's upwards of $5 trillion that has been invested into the United States already through companies like Oracle, SoftBank, Apple, Hyundai, the UAE, Saudi Arabia has also invested. So people are running to the United States, not away from the United States. These are not indications of a recession to me. And the market corrects all the time, and it's been hyperinflated for a while. Think about the economy and how bad it's been, and how bad the supply chain has been fucked up, and how the price of oil, and you can go down the list of the Joe Biden administration. But the only thing that Joe Biden can really kind of point to is, well, at least the stock market was up. And yes, that is true, but still the economy was fucked. So my point is there was a little bubble or correction that was going to happen when you look at the technical analysis, the TA of the charts, and looking at the charts and the indications and the signals that you would read if you're somebody who's a chart reader. You know, there was a correction, and they call it an exhaustion that was occurring, and prices had to come down in the market. And that's what we're seeing. And it was an absolutely great time to buy. For her to look in the camera and accuse Donald Trump of market manipulation for saying that it's a great time to buy is ridiculous. He's the president of the United States. Why would the president of the United States not want to instill confidence in the stock market to the globe and the American citizens? Would you want him to say otherwise? So she's a fucking idiot.
He was trying to encourage more Americans, especially more middle-class Americans, to buy into the market. Like, those are encouraging words, and I don't think in any way, shape, or form that it's market manipulation.
No, it's not at all.
But, you know, I mean, that's what it's going to be for the next 4 years. Anything Trump does good, they're going to try to find a way to spin it as bad. Anything that he does that's questionable, they're going to try to spin it as bad. So, you know, we're going to see that over and over again until the end of time, you know. But
yes, we are, brother.
But hey, we're quickly approaching minutes to midnight. So look, man, This was a pleasure. Thank you for working with my schedule. I'm working
Oh
late
yeah.
at night, so
No
I didn't
problem,
want to
dude.
keep
No
you
problem.
too long. But before we get out of here, why don't
Yes.
you tell everybody where they can follow you?
Yeah, follow me on X at Chris's World, CHRISSW0RLD, or just type in CHRIS' Chris's World. My show on X, live every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The newsletter, it goes out every so often, usually about once, twice, 3 times a week or so. But with the focus on the book, the newsletter did slow down a little bit. But the
Right
latest
on.
episode is always pinned to the top of my bio. Live with Chris's World. That's hilarious. Watch this. Ready? Boom!
I
Started the
love
show.
that.
But yeah, man.
I
So
love that.
I would encourage people to check it out. Follow me on Rumble, also Live with Chris's World. The book is available on Amazon, The Horror That Was Biden. And really appreciate you as well, Robert. Everything that you do is phenomenal. All the content, you do great things and are doing really good work, and appreciate you, value you a lot, and thankful that you're in the Patriot community, my friend.
Likewise, brother. Well, hey, thank you for taking the time to be here. And
Yes.
to everybody in the audience, thank you for taking the time to be here. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.